What if I told you that the day I realized I was an effective leader was the day one of my most valuable team members quit? So, years ago, we hired a young man named Shane. Shane was very green, didn't have a lot of work experience, so he did our opening shift at 4:30 in the morning. Well, Shane did a good job. We invested a lot of time in onboarding Shane and giving him consistent training because he was definitely a culture fit. And Shane grew with all of that training into a stellar employee, probably the best one that worked the front desk. So he got more shifts, went from part time to full time. He was doing a great job, continuing to develop, and we thought, this guy would be great in membership sales. So we approached him and said, would you be interested in being in the membership sales department? Which he said, yes. Now, he had no skills, so we trained him, and he was very responsive to that training and developed into a very good membership salesperson. From there, he got promoted to sales manager. So now he was running an entire department. And on top of that, Shane just elevated the culture. He was very into the company. He was very responsive to training. He was the type of guy who would go and help in other departments. He was absolutely wonderful. We loved working with Shane. So one day, Shane asked to meet. And Shane said, I've taken another job. It's with a substantially bigger company in a very substantial role. So I'm giving you my resignation. You can imagine at that moment, my heart sank. I was disappointed and thought, did I fail? And then after having the chance to think about it, I thought, no. What I did was invest in a great hire, training, and time, and helped him develop skills he never had to be the best he could be. And he had a lot of value to our company for a long period of time. What I had actually done is what great leaders do, and that's bring out the best in people and help them develop and grow into leaders themselves. And it was cemented by an email I then received from Shane. Shane told me in this email, if it weren't for the training, coaching, and mentoring that I received here, I would have never been able to take the job that I just took, let alone have it offered to me, which, by the way, was from a member. That's how it always happens, right? But he was so appreciative of the time he spent. It reinforced the fact that that was effective leadership. And he was so appreciative of that. So that was the moment I knew maybe I am a pretty effective leader. And that is what we're going to talk about today: lifelong lessons in leadership. Hello there, I'm Chris Stevenson, and I'm here to present lifelong lessons in leadership. Leadership is obviously a very important topic, and great leadership is essential for the success of any business. So here's what I want to cover with you in the area of leadership in the next 45 minutes. I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself and my background. We'll define what leadership really is. Then we'll explore 4 keys to effective leadership. And throughout, you'll learn tangible tips and tools that you can implement immediately that will have a positive effect on your leadership skills. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in this incredible industry for over 20 years. I began my career as a personal trainer and group exercise instructor, and I absolutely loved it. I loved working with groups of people. I loved working hands-on, one-on-one with people and seeing them transform their lives and have a blast. It really was rewarding. From there, I opened up a personal training studio of my own. This was 2,000 square feet and it was a very simple business model. We sold 10 packs and we sold 20 packs of training. I had a staff of a half a dozen people, and at that small studio, we decided we were going to differentiate by creating an incredible experience. At the time, what that meant was we came early, we stayed late, we tried to always exceed people's expectations, and of course we did. We had a very successful studio. From there, I opened up and operated a full-service health club named Stevenson Fitness, which we ran successfully for 10 years. Now, going with that small studio and being based on a great member experience, as we grew and we literally quadrupled in size and quadrupled in staff and had a lot more members, we realized we wanted to make that member experience our differentiator still, but it was going to be more challenging. So we really focused in and dialed in systems that really focused on the whole customer journey and how we can make every single touch point as good as possible for the members. And that, in fact, we did. Our goal was to have the best member experience in fitness. And years ago, URSA partnered with a group called the Retention People, or TRP, to do the first ever Net Promoter Score study for the fitness industry. And here's the cool thing. We were part of that study. The average Net Promoter Score, they did it in the UK first, was 22. Then they did it for all of North America, where the average score was just over 40. Our score at the time was 77. We had the highest score in the entire study. So that really quantified that people were very satisfied and happy with what we were doing, so much so that we had the highest score in the industry. And it really let us know that we, in fact, did create this incredible member experience. So we owned and operated that club for over 10 years. And at that point, I moved into the consulting and speaking space. And it was really great. Sometimes people ask if it's hard to be a speaker and a presenter and a consultant. And I said, not really, because all I do is I get the opportunity to tell people some of the great things we've accomplished throughout the years. So basically, I share best practices that we used that were very successful. So while there are some challenges to getting in front of groups of people and speaking, really it's just sharing fun things that have worked. And that's one of the things today you'll see that things I share with you are not theory or ideas, but they're things that I've learned through the years and applied and have been very successful. So that was absolutely outstanding. The consulting and presenting has been a lot of fun, but I couldn't help but get back in the operations game. So I want to share with you a new project we're working on, and it's called Be Military Fit. Be Military Fit is the world's best outdoor workout, and it's been popular in the UK for years. Well, we have the opportunity to bring that brand to the United States, and we're going to start with California. So check out this short video that'll show you just what Be Military Fit is all about.
Thumbs up.
Pretty awesome, huh? Yeah, we're pretty excited about that. So that's a little bit about my background, and hopefully, again, it'll give you some context to where my thoughts and ideas come from based on the experience that I've had. But there is one other thing that I'd like to share with you, and that's this was my first job out of college. Yep, you're seeing it correctly. My first job out of college was doing stunts for the kids show Power Rangers. So when your uniform is shiny red spandex, it looks much better if you're in shape. And then it was a natural transition. I just turned in my red spandex for Lululemon and started personal training and teaching group exercise. So if you take nothing else out of today, I'm cool if you just remember that Red Ranger said, be a great leader. So what is leadership? Well, let's start by talking about what it isn't. Leadership is not management. Management is checking off to-do lists, accomplishing tasks, and getting things done. Now, that's obviously very important for any company to be successful. But here's the thing. You'll find people who are great at managing, but just can't seem to lead, okay? Because leading is a totally different thing. So what is leadership? Okay, leadership is, by definition, the action of leading a group or organization. Okay, well, that's boring and doesn't really help us very much, but that's the technical definition. But here's what I believe leadership to truly be. Leaders are people who bring to life the vision, the mission, the values of a company and accomplish something great. And in addition to that, they have the social influence that help people maximize their effort, find purpose, and help along the way to accomplishing those mission, vision, and values. That's really what leadership is. It's about serving other people. It's about bringing out the best in other people. And while there are many factors that go into great leadership, I want to share with you 4 lifelong lessons in leadership, 4 areas that we're going to focus on today that are going to help you dramatically improve your leadership skills. We'll start with inspiration because all great leaders inspire their teams to do amazing things. But that can't happen without the second topic, which is communication. We've got to communicate our messages effectively. Then we'll move into participation and how significant it is to get your teams to participate at a higher level. And we'll wrap it up with appreciation because it's obviously super important to make sure your team knows that they're valued for the effort that they put in. One thing I've learned over the years is that great leaders are great at inspiration. And what we mean by inspiration is taking the vision, mission, and values of your company and infusing it to your team so that they all understand why they exist and what they need to accomplish. And when they believe in that purpose, they work even harder. But one thing about that is, in the first step in great leadership is that you have to lead by example. You have to live it. So as an example, our last club, the mission statement was, at Stevenson Fitness, everybody leaves feeling better than when they arrived. So if I were to not engage with a member or have a great interaction or ignore a member, I would be going against that mission statement because that wouldn't honor it. And if a team member saw that, they would think, well, they say this is important, but it's not. So why would they act that way? And the one thing to know is the quickest way to destroy a culture is to say it's one thing and then act another way. So something as simple as if you as a leader say, we don't want our employees to use cell phones on the floor during their shifts, but then you're walking across the floor with your cell phone, they're not going to listen either. So it's important as a leader that we live our culture and that we lead by example. We're also going to make decisions by it. So when we look at that mission statement and core values, every decision we make, whether it's policy or the way we engage with members or programming at the club, should fall in line with that. If we do something that goes against that, then it shows that that culture is not that important and we're doing the opposite of infusing it. And then there's other things. You want to hire by your culture. So when you hire somebody, they should get a copy of your vision, mission statement, and your core values. And you should ask them at that first interview, do you align with these? Do these make sense to you? Can you see yourself wrapping yourself around this? Do you believe in these purposes? Because if they do, then they're a great potential candidate. But there's nothing wrong with if they don't, but then this is just not the team for them. So use it as part of your hiring process. Bake it into the questions that you ask in the interview process. Then also fire by it. So one of our core values was play like a championship team. Another was build real relationships. Well, we had a personal trainer who had a lot of clients. It was generating a lot of revenue. But it was very standoffish, sometimes even rude. So his clients loved him, but he wasn't living up to those core values. So we let him go. And you want to talk about infusing your culture and letting your rest of your team know that those values really are important to you. Well, that did it because they saw a very busy personal trainer get fired simply by not living up to those core values. By the way, on a tangent, as soon as we did that, our other trainers flourished because some of them weren't performing as well as they could because he had made them nervous. So it's a great example. When you fire somebody based on cultural issues, based on not living up to expectations, with your vision, mission, and values, that creates a big impact on that inspiring your staff that your culture really does mean something to you. So those are really important. Now there's other really tangible ways that I want to share with you as well that you can infuse your mission, vision, values to your staff. So let's check those out. The first thing you want to do is present it at the first interview. A new potential hire needs to know what your company stands for and what it's all about. And there's no better way to do that than show them what the vision, mission, and values are. Then you want to make it a component of onboarding. So often we train all the technical skills of a job, but you want to explain the vision, mission, and values so they know exactly what's expected of their behavior at all times. Then you want to promote it to your customers because when your team sees that you're promoting that your company stands for these values and this vision and this mission, then they have to live up to those expectations because your customers expect it. Then you can do things like internal posters where you have it plastered all over your office, your break room, put it up during meetings. Then things like core cards and cheat sheets where they can carry it in their pocket or it's taped up behind your front desk so they remember how they're supposed to behave and act at all times. And then finally, quiz your team. There's nothing more impactful that also demonstrates that this really means something is when you're out on the floor as a leader going, hey, what is our mission statement? What are our core values? What is our vision? So you want to make sure that you ask your team on a regular basis. Doing all of those things will really help you promote your culture and thus really infuse it. So those are all really great ways to infuse your culture into your team. And that's fundamentally what inspiration really is. It's infusing the vision, mission, values into your team so that they understand their purpose and they perform at the highest level that they're capable of. Now, the next thing we're going to move into is communication because great leaders are also great communicators. Another lesson that I learned is that great leaders are great communicators. And what does that mean? How do we become great communicators? How do we make sure that our communication is effective? Well, as Milton Erickson said in that quote, we don't decide if we're great communicators. The people we're communicating to will decide whether or not we're good. And that's important to remember. But really, communication at its most fundamental part is simply you have information, it's getting that information and having it resonate with the people that need to know it. That's really what communication is all about. So a couple things that go into effective communication. One is as leaders, we need to always over communicate. You cannot communicate too much. So you want to make sure that you're telling people enough times so that it really does resonate. So that's just a simple tactic is we want to over communicate things. And right along with over communicating is we want to use diverse methods. So as we communicate with our teams, sometimes it's going to be a social post on an internal Facebook page. Sometimes it's going to be a video message. Sometimes it'll be live at meetings. Sometimes it'll be an email. But remember, people take in information differently. Some receive it in different ways better than other ways. So we want to diversify the way we over communicate messages to our staff. So that's really important. The other thing is you want to create a very predictable communication plan with your teams. So as a leader, you're going to say, hey, you're going to get my message every Monday, a video message from me on what's going on with this week. Then you're also going to, I will send you monthly email updates. But you want to create a plan that's very predictable. And then the key is to make sure that you execute that plan. Because if you say you're going to communicate this often by these methods and then you don't, you lose trust because you're not following through on your word. So again, it's about over communication, using diverse methods of communication, and then creating and sticking and delivering on the plan and the timeline of your communication. So in addition to those things, I want to share 3 other types of communications we've used effectively at our clubs and with clubs that we've consulted with.
We start with an annual theme, and this is something we've instituted with clubs we run, also with clubs that we consult with, and it's very effective. But this is a company-wide rallying cry. This goes out to all of your team members to get them unified in a mission. So generally, you set your annual theme based on something you want to improve or if you want to implement something new. So as an example of an annual theme that we communicated and went very effectively, at one of our clubs, the Net Promoter Score was 75. Well, we wanted to do even better. So we created an annual theme called Go to 80. And with that, we encouraged all of our team members to do above and beyond to elevate the member experience so that when we redid our Net Promoter Score, it was above 80. So everybody rallied around that mission together and in fact took the score well above 80. So it was a very effective annual theme. The next one is a monthly message. So this form of communication is done departmentally, not to your entire company. And this focuses on specific areas in that department where you need training or if you want to improve certain things. So as an example, with your front desk, a monthly message might be about greetings. Okay, there's so many different kinds. And that leads us right into our weekly breakdown. So these are weekly communications that go out. So with that welcome desk, when the monthly message is greetings, we break it down into 4 parts. Week 1 is a warm welcome for a member. What are all the things that go into welcoming a member when they come to your facility? Smiling, eye contact, using their name, the scripts that you use. Week 2 would be then how to do the same warm welcome, but for a prospect, somebody who's coming in to check out your club. Week 3 would be how to do that same greeting on the phone. And then week 4 would be a fond farewell. So that is our monthly message of greetings broken down into 4 consumable parts. So those are 3 different communication strategies that are very effective.
So those are some very tactical techniques to use to be an effective communicator. And remember, to be a great leader, you have to be a great communicator. But in addition to those tactical things like over-communicating, diversifying your methods, creating and sticking to a plan, creating an annual, monthly, and weekly theme, those are real tactical. There are also skills that great communicators have. So let me show you some of those skills.
One of the first of these skills that effective and excellent communicators understand is the importance of body language. Now, there's a rule when it comes to communication, and that's your meaning is connotated 55% from body language, 38% by the tone you use, and only 7% by the words that you choose. So that shows you how important those things are. And by the way, we'll get to tone next. But again, back to body language. Now, the thing about body language is a lot of body language is subconscious. It's the way we're wired physiologically as human beings. So for example, if we feel slightly insecure or nervous, we tend to cover our body, which might mean folding our arms across our chest. Now, while we're not making a conscious decision to do that, the person we're communicating with is not maybe consciously saying, I don't like that person's body language. But what they are saying subconsciously to themselves is, there's something that feels uncomfortable about this interaction, as opposed to having your shoulders pulled back, a big smile, and your arms wide open, which is a very secure and confident position. So the thing to understand about body language is, and by the way, there's a great book called What Every Body Says. It was written by an FBI agent who used to master the art of interrogation by studying body language. Absolute great read that I recommend that will show you how important body language is and exactly how to read it. But understand it's heavily important for effective communication. The next thing, as I alluded to, is tone. The way you say things matters. The words that you emphasize matter. So I use an example when I present often in a live environment, the sentence, I didn't say I kicked my dog. Okay, there are 7 words in that sentence. But if I emphasize a different word each time, we can get 7 different meanings. So if I say, I didn't say I kicked my dog versus I didn't say I kicked my dog, or I didn't say I kicked my dog, or I didn't say I kicked my dog, just by emphasizing a different word each time, we get a different meaning. So that's 7 different meanings emphasizing 7 different words. So you can see how tone has an impact on how you communicate. The next thing that's important is transparency. And this is basically being open and honest with your communications. And one thing we've learned in recent times, sometimes being transparent means saying, I don't know. We just went through a world of uncertainty, but being honest and saying, I don't know is acceptable sometimes. But transparency is there to provide knowledge and information in a very open and honest way. And you build a lot of respect and you build trust when you communicate that way with your employees. I will tell you, when I first started as a leader, I was bad with transparency, not for any negative reasons. I just didn't like uncomfortable conversations. And part of transparency is if somebody's not doing a great job, you tell them about it, right? You're transparent because you're not helping them and you're not helping yourself or your members by not being open and honest. So one thing, as I grew as a leader, I got much better about being transparent. And I wasn't negative, but I was very clear, open, and honest, especially in difficult conversations. Now, transparency leads into clarity. And while I said transparency is about being open and honest and providing knowledge and information, clarity is about putting it into context so people understand how to utilize that information. So that's the difference between the two. So here's an example of clarity that might happen with your front desk. You might tell your front desk worker, I need you to clean up the front desk. And they do it. And you come back and you say, well, that's not clean. But in their mind, it was because you weren't clear. There was no clarity. Clarity means you tell them very specifically what the expectations are in all aspects of that area being clean. Because then everybody is on the same page. If you're not clear, that team member might have thought, I did a great job cleaning this. And then you lose trust because they think to themselves, I did exactly what you asked. Exactly. And you were unhappy with me. And in your mind, you're like, I asked you to do something and you didn't do it. But when you are crystal clear throughout your communications, you take that issue away and you build trust with your teammates. So clarity is of the utmost importance as well. Then you want to pay attention and listen meaningfully. And there are a lot of bad listeners out there, and it's not always unintentional. Sometimes when we communicate, we've got a preconceived direction we want the communication to go. So we're not truly listening, right? But you need to listen. You've got to pay attention to what somebody's saying and really take in that information. And people notice that and they understand that when they're speaking with you. But a lot of times we get in a conversation and while someone is speaking, we're thinking about what we're going to say next already. Or we already think we have an answer in our head. But what you want to do is really be open, take in that information, process it so that the person knows that their opinion matters, that this is not a one-way conversation, that is a true communication. So you want to pay attention and listen meaningfully. Again, it's so easy to be a bad listener unintentionally. And then there's asking clarifying questions. And this ties right into that paying attention and listening meaningfully. So when you repeat what somebody says, you show them, I really am listening. And it also helps you add clarity. So saying things like, it sounds to me like what you're saying is this. Or just to confirm, this is what you said, correct? So again, you're clarifying. It enhances the fact that you're listening. And it also helps you make more sense of something as you communicate. And then finally, empathy. And again, this is something we've learned in the current environment is try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes when you communicate with them. Sometimes we think we're great communicators because we're giving out all this information, but think of the person you're speaking with. How will this resonate best with them? If you were in their shoes, what would this sound like to you? And empathy goes far beyond communication. Empathy, I believe, is one of the most powerful leadership skills that somebody can possess. Because when you can really see something from somebody else's point of view, and you do your best to understand what their situation might be or what they might be going through, you are a much more effective communicator because you're giving them a message in a way that you think they're going to perceive it well. Again, you don't decide if you're a good communicator. The person you're speaking with and their response lets you know if you're a good communicator.
So those are all some pretty solid, tactical, actionable things you can do to improve your communication as a leader. And again, you don't determine whether or not you're great at communicating. The way people respond to you determine whether or not you're a good communicator. And in order to be the best leader you can be, you have to be an effective communicator. So moving on, another thing that's really essential for great leadership is creating participation. So another thing I learned in my over 20 years of experience in our incredible industry is that great leaders actively seek and encourage participation from their team members. Now, I'm going to tell you very specifically ideas to do that and to encourage that, but why is participation so important? Well, first and foremost, it gives your employees a voice, an opportunity to be heard, and that is always appreciated. Secondly, it motivates them. When they know they're going to be asked to participate and get involved at a deeper level, they're going to be more connected and more inspired and motivated. Also, it shows that you value their input, okay? Because if you're going to ask for it, you must value it. So a key to note there is if you're not going to act on their feedback and ideas and thoughts, don't ask for it. Better to not ask and not do anything than to ask and do nothing. There's nothing that disengages a team member more than asking them for their opinion and then ignoring it. So if you're going to ask, you want to make sure that you act on it. It also shows that you have a team member centric culture, and that's going to help you retain your team members because they want to be a part of that and attract new team members, okay? Because by asking for participation, again, it demonstrates that you have a team member centric culture, and that's important. It shows you care, and it also increases their caring because now they're going to have more buy-in because they're participating in a lot of the things that you implement and the ideas that you have and the changes that you make. So there's a high level of buy-in and you increase the level that they care. So that's the reason participation is so valuable. Now let's specifically look at ways that you can encourage participation from your team members.
There are some very tangible ways you can encourage input and participation from your team members. It starts with a new hire survey. When you bring somebody on board and they're brand new to the company, give them a new hire survey where you ask questions about them, learn more about them, and how to lead them better. I'll show you an example of that in a few minutes. Then there's general team member surveys. This would be similar to what you send your members. You send your members surveys to find out how their gym experience is. Why not send your team members surveys to find out how their workplace experience is? So you can use a variety of questions for that. There's a start, stop, and continue survey. This is as simple as, hey, tell us what to start doing that we're not, stop doing that we currently are, and what are we doing that we should continue doing because it makes your work experience better. Great simple survey, gives you valuable data. Then there's meeting effectiveness surveys. I like this one because if you ask anyone, did you have a good meeting? Their answer is, yeah. But did you? Well, if you send out a meeting effectiveness survey, you can get straight from the horse's mouth whether or not that meeting was effective. I'll show you an example of that in a moment. There's the Gallup Q12, which we'll talk about when we get to appreciation, but it's basically the foremost survey on employee engagement, letting you know whether your employees are dialed in or they're not. And then finally, the eNPS, which is the Employee Net Promoter Score, which we'll go into an example in a moment.
So those are some very tangible and tactical ways that you can encourage participation from your team members. So I do want to take it a step further, though, and show you a couple examples of some of the things that I just spoke about.
Here's an example of the new employee survey that I mentioned previously. 3 simple questions that give you a lot of valuable information and allow for an employee to really feel valued because you're asking for it. You're asking their opinion. You're asking what they like. It's how do you like to be recognized? If you could receive a gift card to anywhere, what would it be? And how would you prefer to receive feedback? Take question 2 quickly. If you could have a gift card to anywhere, what would it be? How special does it make it when you reward somebody with something that they really want and really appreciate rather than a generic gift? It's pretty powerful. Then there's meeting effectiveness surveys. Again, you don't decide if a meeting's effective. The people in it do. So here's some basic questions you can ask. Was the meeting the right amount of time? Did you learn something new? Were you able to participate? How satisfied were you with the meeting's value in making you do your job better? Those are simple questions that give you valuable data. Then finally, the eNPS, or the Employee Net Promoter Score. It works the same way as a Net Promoter Score. You send to your employees the ultimate question. On a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to refer someone to work here? Then you take the promoters, the people who give you a 9 and 10, subtract the percentage of detractors, the 0 through 6, and that gives you your eNPS score. So it gives you tangible data to let you know whether or not you're providing a good work environment for your team members. It also gives them a voice.
So what I've shared so far in the area of participation were very sort of formal survey feedback type mechanisms. But you also want to get creative. And when you get creative, it can actually be very fun for you and for your team members. So check out these really creative ways to get your team members to participate at a higher level. Continuing education is a great one. Team members thrive in an environment where they're learning, growing, and developing on a regular basis. So when you can provide an environment that allows them to do that, they're going to be much more inspired and empowered and work harder for you. That ties right into team member development programs. This is providing clinics, lectures, seminars, just giving them skills in different areas. So as an example, for your younger staff, you might teach them how to apply to get into college,
run a little clinic that shows them exactly how to do that. Again, it shows them that you care and that you're interested in them as people, not just as employees. Then there's the secret interview, which I love. I got this one from Tony Hsieh, the founder of Zappos. At Zappos, whenever they brought a candidate in for an interview, they would interview the limo driver that picked that person up at the airport and brought them to headquarters. What this allowed them to do was see who a person really is. Because in an interview, you're obviously going to put your best foot forward. But did you treat the simple limo driver with respect? Were you engaging? Were you nice? In the gym environment, we look at it like this. After an interview, have your front desk person tour the candidate and engage them. And then afterwards, you ask your team member, how were they? How was that candidate? So not only do you get great feedback, but you've created an incredible opportunity for that team member to participate, and you've really empowered them. Have some of your great team members participate in new hire training. That's part of the onboarding process. If they're really good at a certain skill, let them teach that in the new member onboarding. That ties right into mentorships. Take some of your senior staff and pair them with some of your newer staff. Let them work with each other and develop each other. That will empower them. And then finally, let them be the hero. When there's good news to share, something great to say to a member or do, let them do it. Empower them to get the glory. Lord knows during their job, they're telling people that they can't do this, can't do that, and they're enforcing policy. So whenever you have the opportunity, let them be the hero. That is very, very empowering.
So now you have a good understanding of why participation is so valuable. I also gave you some very formal ways to encourage more participation, as well as some fun and creative ways to get your team members more involved. Now we're going to move on to the final piece, and that is great leaders understand and are great at executing appreciation. Appreciation has a massive impact on team member engagement. The more they feel appreciated and valued and that what they do has purpose and makes a difference, the more they're going to be engaged and motivated to do a great job. So it's important that a great leader takes the time to make sure that appreciation is a common theme throughout their organization. The one thing to remember too is, and we talked about inspiration, how we want to inspire the vision, the mission, the values. So we want to inspire that. Then we're going to give our staff the ongoing training they need to execute at a high level. But then they also need to be told, hey, you're doing a good job and it makes a difference. So appreciation is very impactful. Now, there's a couple different ways to feel appreciated, and some are very tactical and they're not a surprise. Someone has to feel like they're getting fair pay for the job that they do to be appreciated and engaged. They also have to feel, generally, like there's the ability to climb through a company, that they're going to be able to promote and grow with a company. That also engages them and makes them feel appreciated. And then finally, raises, bonuses, commissions, those sort of things add to being appreciated. And those are very tangible and very tactical. But appreciation goes far beyond that. And by the way, some companies don't have that ability. You may have a smaller company and there's not a lot of room for promotion. Or maybe salary is limited, bonuses are limited. Okay, so all those things play a part in team member engagement and also being appreciated, but we need to take that a step further. So what I want to show you are ways to really show appreciation that don't cost anything other than being intentional about it and taking the time to do it correctly. And again, it is going to have a massive impact on your employees' performance. But let me start with a little bit of data that I think is going to shed some light on just how important this is based on research and statistics.
The Gallup Q12 is the world's most popular employee engagement survey. The people at Gallup for the past 30 years have been doing research into employee motivation, performance, and engagement. And through all of their research, what they've come up with are 12 questions. And these 12 questions are the best predictor of how engaged a team member is and how well they're going to perform. Now, here's what's interesting as we talk about appreciation. When you look at the questions, at least half of them revolve around feeling appreciated. So check this out. In the last 7 days, have you received recognition or praise for doing a good job? Does your supervisor care about you? Is there someone who encourages your development? At work, do your opinions count? Does the mission purpose of the company make you feel like your job is important? In the last 6 months, has somebody talked to you about your progress? And even if you look at some of the questions that don't have check marks, I would argue that some of those tie into appreciation as well. But the bottom line is this shows how impactful appreciation is.
So now you see that appreciation is in fact legit and studied. It's not just a feel-good type of thing. It really does affect employee engagement. Matter of fact, there was a recent study that showed 70% of employees in this study said if they heard thank you more often from their supervisor, it would massively inspire them to do a better job. So studies like this are left and right. You can find them all over the place. The bottom line is this really does make a difference. So I told you there were some other ways besides the formal ways we talked about to express appreciation. And that's what we want to talk about. So the first three keys to expressing appreciation are you want to be frequent, timely, and specific. Those three things are very important. Now, we saw in the Gallup Q12 that it should happen once every 7 days. An employee should be told they're doing a good job. That's what their research shows. So you want to be frequent about it. And then timely and specific. You want to catch somebody in the act and be very specific about what they did really well. So if you were in your facility and you saw somebody at the front desk do a wonderful, warm welcome to somebody and use their name and have this great interaction, you want to grab them right in the moment while that thing is happening, well, right after it happens, and you want to say, hey, I love the way you used the name, your energy was great, you were smiling, that member had a great time, you just made that member have a better day. So you want to be very specific about what you liked and you want to do it in the moment. Because if it doesn't happen in the moment, we often forget. I can't remember what I did the last hour, let alone last week. So you want to catch people in the moment. So frequently, timely, and specific when it comes to expressing gratitude. It goes a long way. Then the other thing you want to think about is you want to do it in personal ways. So that's one-on-one through a phone call, through a text message, through an email, through an actual conversation. Okay, that very personal experience makes people feel appreciated. But then there's doing it in public ways as well. So I do an email to the entire department and highlight a great behavior that somebody was doing, right? Or I announce it at a team meeting, or we do it on our internal Facebook page, or we send a video to the entire staff. But you can do it in personal ways and you can do it public ways. Now, the great thing about the public is there's two real benefits. One, the person that's receiving the praise gets it in front of the other team members. So they feel really special in front of their teammates. The other thing that's great is the other teammates see this and now see, wow, that's the kind of behavior that gets praised, and it motivates and inspires them and gives them ideas on how they can perform at a higher level. Then finally, you want to find creative ways to consistently show appreciation. And appreciation goes far beyond simply, thank you for doing a good job. So check out these creative ways that we used at our last club that really showed appreciation to our team members.
Birthdays. Most people's favorite day of the year is their own birthday. It's a very important day. So why not recognize that? When you take the time to recognize somebody's birthday, you're making them feel appreciated, cared about, and special. So what we would do is we'd always get somebody a birthday balloon, and we would take a picture that then we would share on our social media. And I have to tell you that we got some of our best engagements on social media when we did posts like this that featured people. But again, taking the simple time to recognize somebody's birthday in the workplace and share it with people has a massive impact and makes people feel really appreciated. Another thing we would do is called the woo wall, WOO, and that stands for winning others over. So on this wall, we would have people write down amazing things they did to go above and beyond for members. So you could write down something that you did or something you saw somebody else do, but it was a great way to celebrate these moments. And the fact that we created a whole area of the club just to put this stuff up shows you, hey, we really appreciate that you go above and beyond to make us the great club that we are. So simple things like Jenna sent chicken soup to a sick member, and Chris took class with Cindy G. So taking class with a member who was scared to take a class. But again, this was a great way to say, we expect this, but we also recognize it. And it was fun because you'd see staff members hanging out, pointing at it, reading at it, and actually getting ideas from it. So it was a great way to show appreciation and also inspire people to go above and beyond. Welcoming new team members is really important as well. So one thing we did to show them right from the start, at the beginning of this relationship, that we appreciate them, was we give them a small gift cards, flowers, things like that, to say, hey, here's a gift, welcome to the team. And in addition, we would always take a picture and post it on our internal and external social media. That way, because they're new, they'll have met some people, but not everybody. But now at least people have seen them, so they don't feel like that awkward new person. They already feel like a part of the team, and that really helps with appreciation. Now, similar to birthdays, we also celebrated work anniversaries. So we want to let you know that we appreciate that you work with us, so much so that every time a year rolls by, we're going to celebrate that. So we get you a cupcake, we put a candle in it, and then again, we would post it on our social media. And it was a great way. People were blown away. Most places don't do things like that. So when you take the time to celebrate a work anniversary, again, you're showing people that you're going to go above and beyond for your staff. Your staff is important, that you care about them. So it was great for appreciation. And then finally, just sharing things in general when you have great news. So this was a comment on a Net Promoter Score study, and the highest score on Net Promoter you can get is a 10. But particularly, I love this one. The young lady said, I have never been to a gym, but this is like any other place. I don't like to exercise and I complain all the time, but I go. Chris and his staff created something special that keeps me coming back. The staff and instructors are available to answer questions and concerns. You always welcome with a smile. And this was my favorite part. I always tell Chris that as far as gyms go, I hate Stevenson Fitness the best. So again, took a screenshot, posted it internally for the entire staff to see, and it just made their day. Because again, this was concrete evidence that they worked so hard to create a great experience. It's paying off. Not only do we show our appreciation by sharing this with them, but they see that the members appreciate them as well.
So now you know why appreciation is so impactful. And it's not just because it's a feel-good thing, it's because there's research and data and studies that show how it impacts positive team member engagement. You also have some great ideas on how to do it. The traditional ways that you have to make sure you're doing, which is fair pay and the ability to promote through a company, bonuses, raises, and commissions. Then we talked about the intentional expression of praise and thanks. And that's frequent, timely, and specific, and how important that is. And one thing to note in today's fitness industry, with everything that's happened in the past year, many places have had to cut down and have had to downsize their staff a little bit. And there might not be a lot of room for raises, bonuses, commissions, and growth inside companies. But one thing you can always control is the latter stuff that we talked about, that intentional expression of thanks and praise. So keep that in mind as you move forward. But that is what appreciation is all about, and great leaders understand appreciation.
Well, there you have it. Those keys are part of my lifelong lessons in leadership, things that I've learned throughout my career to consistently improve and become the best leader that I can be. As a quick recap, it starts with inspiration. You need to inspire those around you to bring out the best in them. You've got to infuse the vision, mission, values of your company to all of your team members. And that happens through strong and effective communication. It also happens through allowing them to participate, getting their thoughts, opinions, and ideas, giving them a voice, getting them more involved, because that results in more buy-in. And we wrap it all together by appreciation. We've inspired them to do amazing things. We have to let them know that what they're doing matters, has purpose, serves others, and that we're grateful for that.
So as we wrap this thing up, firstly, I want to say thank you. I know that your time is valuable, and I appreciate that you spent your time with me. Another takeaway I want to make sure that you have is that leadership can in fact be learned. At the start of my career, I was always optimistic and I tried to be charismatic and positive, but I will definitely say I was not a great leader. But through the years of listening to presentations like this and working with mentors and role models and reading, I became a better leader. So I developed as a leader over time. So when you continue to learn and use some of the things that you learned today to improve your leadership, you are then able to create and inspire teams that do amazing things for members. And that not only will lead you to having a successful facility, but it goes a little deeper than that. One thing this pandemic has taught us is that exercise is medicine and that gyms are essential. So when we improve our leadership skills and improve the levels of our teams, we're able to impact people's lives in a positive way to make them healthier and happier. And I'm not sure that there's anything better than that. Thank you.